Broncos country, thank you for taking a few minutes out of your day to spend them here with me for a brand new video on the Parker Love Sports YouTube channel. And in today's video, we're going to be going over some players who are in the, or I guess all the players who are in their contract year, their final season with the Denver Broncos, potentially, unless they don't get re-signed or extended. This will be the last year some of these players will be on the Denver Broncos. Now, I wanted to do this before, I guess, the final cut down day, which is tomorrow or today when you're seeing this, and I'm going to release this video 2 hours earlier than I normally do. I typically release my videos at 10 a.m. Mountain Time here in Colorado, but I'm releasing it at 8 a.m. just to kind of give some time. I don't know how much of a buffer that's going to be, but I wanted to get this video out because I want to try and drop my final Denver Broncos roster video tomorrow when that is fully released, but we'll have to see how everything goes with that. But we're going to be going over the Broncos who are in their contract years, final years. Doesn't matter if they signed a multi-year deal and they're down to their final year, or if this was the only year on their contract. I'm going to give you every single player who is eligible, or I guess who needs another contract if they want to come back to the Denver Broncos next season. Make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you do enjoy, as the support is greatly appreciated. I'm trying to reach 1,000 subscribers, and I know we're a little bit far away from that, but if you could help me reach my goal, that would mean the absolute world to me. And of course, before we get started, I just want to remind you that Jesus loves you and he died on the cross for your sins, and he is the only way to heaven. It doesn't matter how many times we do these good works or go to church. The only reason we're saved is because of our faith in Jesus and because of his sacrifice that he made for all of us on the cross, because he loves you. And with that being said, let's go ahead and let's jump in to the Broncos who are in their final year of their contract. But first, I got to go over some breaking news. Tim Patrick is being let go by the Denver Broncos. Now, we're searching for a trade, and I do think that he will be traded. There's reportedly been multiple calls about Tim Patrick, so I do expect him to be traded. If not, he's going to be released, but it sounds like a deal is going to get done out as of the information that we know right now, and it is 1:25 a.m. on Tuesday during cutdown day, and so I'm expecting a deal to be done. We're, of course, also looking to trade Samaje Perine, and if he doesn't get traded, he'll be released as well. And that's the big news. Now, Perine, was solid for us last year as a kind of a receiving third down back. Got Russell Wilson out of a lot of pickles when we had to drive down late in the game. But Tim Patrick, this one hurts. He's been with the team for a while. Was on the practice squad for a little bit, then got elevated and has been really solid for us during that, 2020 season when Sutton went down with injury and Judy even went down with injury. Tim Patrick was the number one receiver and he balled out. Then had two back-to-back unfortunate years with tearing his ACL and tearing his Achilles. And then he started to look solid this season, and the Broncos were moving on from him. And, it's sad. It really is. I love Tim Patrick, great guy, and he was a very solid receiver for us. But honestly, with the emergence of our youth, I think this is kind of what drove the decision. Tim Patrick is getting up there in age. And when you look at the current receivers right now, you have to expect Josh Reynolds and Cortland Sutton. They're going to be the two veteran receivers. And then you got a ton of young guys like Marvin Mims, Troy Franklin, Brandon Johnson, some of those guys who are going to make the roster. And I think, honestly, Brandon Johnson's performance in the third preseason game, I think that kind of solidified his spot on the roster. So I think that is what led to Tim Patrick being released. And it's sad because he's a fan favorite, and I predicted him to make the roster. I thought he was going to make the roster, but it's better to move off of a player a year too early than a year too late, and I think that's what we're doing here is we're getting this youth movement in here, and, this is why we hired Sean Payton. He's going to put the best players on the field, and he's going to build the best roster. Tim Patrick is a great story, but we want the best team on the field, and so I think that's what Sean Payton's doing, although this decision really does hurt. And then, like I mentioned, of course, Samaje Perine is also expected to get traded. As for what we can expect in value, I would say probably the best we would get would probably be a fourth-round pick, but I would expect a fourth to a fifth-round pick kind of in the trade range for both of them. Maybe it's like a fifth and a sixth, but I would expect the highest draft pick we would get is a fourth-rounder. And if it's higher than that, if it's a third and above, I'd be ecstatic, but I am not expecting that to happen because that is so far-fetched. But now with that being said, let's go ahead, let's jump in to the players who are in the final year of their contract. This is going to be a very quick I guess I'll explain that. Let's move the slide real quick. Here are the Broncos free agents after this season, and we're going to be moving very, very quickly. I'm not going to go too in depth because we would literally be here for an hour with how much I like to ramble. So I'm just going to go player by player, and then if I want to stop and talk about a player, I might go a little bit into depth, but I'm going to try and keep this fast, keep this moving. So first up, we have Garrett Bowles, who is going to be an unrestricted free agent, meaning he's free to sign with any team. So Garrett Bowles, it's tough. It's tough. Of course, he was our first-round pick in 2017. He's getting a little bit older. Of course, he was an older rookie when we drafted him. I think he was 25 when we drafted him back in 2017. And he's been solid, but I don't know if the Broncos bring him back. I think we might look to target an offensive tackle early in the first round next year, or if he is coming back, I think it would be on a one-year deal, kind of be a bridge, and then draft his replacement potentially. I love Garrett Bowles, a solid tackle for us. I'd say our best tackle. I prefer Garrett Bowles over Mike McGlinchey. Of course, struggled early in his career and then kind of developed, honestly, when, Mike Munchak came in as our offensive line coach. But, yeah, we'll see what happens with Garrett Bowles. Maybe the Broncos extend him, but if they do, I would expect it to be on a one-year deal. Next up is going to be DJ Jones, someone who we signed in the Hackett era to a 3-year deal, and, yeah, he will be an unrestricted free agent. He came here because he said he wanted to play with Russell Wilson. Obviously, he played with San Francisco before that, so had to face Russell Wilson in the same division. Signs with us. Obviously, that didn't work out. He's a solid nose tackle, really solid at stopping the run, but is getting up there in age, so I don't know if the Broncos will re-sign him. He's also an unrestricted free agent. Then we got Zach Wilson. Of course, we declined his 5th-year option. That's why he's here. Maybe the Broncos potentially extend him after the season if he is quarterback 2, which I wouldn't mind if we did that, honestly. Have Zach Wilson develop under Sean Payton for a couple years and then give him another shot to start in the league. Also, it's going to be Jarrett Stidham, so it depends. If Stidham's contract expires, do we bring him back? Obviously, if we keep both on the roster, who do you bring back? My preference would probably be Zach Wilson with the youth, with the potential upside. But yeah, both of our backup quarterbacks are up for contracts at the end of the year, and they're both unrestricted free agents. Then we got Samaje Perine, who he's on here, but it's not really going to matter. As I mentioned earlier, he is going to be traded. Most likely, if he's not traded, he'll be released. So it's not really going to matter, but Samaje Perine was an unrestricted free agent after this year. Then we have Tremon Smith, the corner, undrafted free agent. He was signed, what was it? It was last offseason when we got McGlinchey and we got Ben Powers. He was mostly signed for his returning ability, ability as a potential punt and kick returner. But with the emergence of Marvin Mims, he hasn't really been utilized a whole lot. And then there's other guys who can potentially return, Riley Moss. So, if Tremon Smith's on the roster, I don't expect us to bring him back if he makes a 53-man roster, but I didn't predict him making it. Maybe he does. Maybe Sean Payton likes the speed, likes the upside as a returner, but as a cornerback, he's not the greatest. But we'll see. He'll be an unrestricted free agent as well. Javonte Williams will be an unrestricted free agent. His contract is running out, and honestly, it doesn't feel like Javonte Williams, this is his 4th season. It's crazy to think about because 2021, 22, 23, and then 2024, this is his 4th year, but it doesn't feel like that. It feels like it was just recently. We drafted Pat Surtain in the 1st, then we traded up for Javonte in the 2nd round. To me, it doesn't feel like that. It doesn't feel like he should be up for a contract, but he is, and this season is going to depend on how Javonte plays. If he plays well, I expect him to get a potential contract for the Broncos, but if he doesn't, he could be moving on to another team. And, this is a very strong running back class. Of course, you guys know I'm an Oklahoma State alum, so wouldn't mind if we got Ollie Gordon on the squad, but love Javonte as well. I'm hoping he does have a bounce-back season because I believe in Javonte. It's really tough. Great rookie year. 2nd year looked solid, goes down in week 4 against the Raiders due to an ACL injury. Comes back last year, doesn't really look like himself. He's looking solid so far at the start of the year, and if he gets back to that rookie year status, I expect us to extend Javonte to be our running back 1, but it all depends on how he plays this upcoming season. Next up, we got Riley Dixon, our punter, which, of course, we drafted back in 2017 when we drafted Garrett Bowles. We drafted him in the 7th round. Decent rookie year. Don't remember it too much, if I'm honest with you. Then that following year in 2018, we cut him or traded him because we signed Marquette King, who I don't really think got a fair shot in Denver because, what was it, Tom McMahon or whoever our special teams coordinator wasn't the greatest. I really wish we gave Marquette King a fair shot here in Denver. But then he went to the Giants and the Rams, I believe, and then he came back this year, so he's back to the city. I guess not the city, but the team who drafted him. I like Riley Dixon. I think he's solid. Don't know if we bring him back, though, because it's a punter. It's not the most crucial position to winning a championship. It's important for flipping field position, but I don't know if we're going to want to spend a whole lot of money on a punter. Maybe we sign one as an undrafted free agent or we draft one in the later rounds. We'll have to see, but Riley Dixon is an unrestricted free agent. Same thing with Michael Burton, the fullback. He's getting up there in age, but I know Sean Payton loves him, had him in New Orleans, and then, of course, signed him last offseason, and then we brought him back this past, or I guess 2 offseasons ago technically, but then he brought him back last offseason. We know Sean Payton likes him. He's getting up there in age. We'll have to see if Sean Payton wants to bring him back next season. Then we got Angelo Blackson, a defensive lineman who's an unrestricted free agent. We'll see if he makes the roster, but if he does, he'll be an unrestricted free agent at the end of the year. Next up, we got Justin Stranad, who's a linebacker. He was a 5th-round pick in 2020. We brought him back on a 1-year deal this past offseason, and we'll see what he does. He's more of a backup, more of a depth linebacker, but this past preseason game in Week 3 against the Cardinals, he looked really solid. So obviously I'm going to keep saying it. It all depends on how they do this upcoming preseason. Sorry for hitting the mic, by the way, on what happened. This video is just purely informative of who is up for a contract. So that's the main point of this video. Next up, Tim Patrick. Unfortunately, this one isn't going to matter with the looming trade or release. I do expect him and P. Ryan to both be traded. But yeah, with the looming trade or release, unfortunately, it doesn't matter anymore. And, like I said at the top of the video, it's going to be sad. It's going to be tough losing Tim Patrick. Always going to be a Bronco, and I hope he balls out wherever he goes. Just please don't go to the Chargers, the Chiefs, or the Raiders. Next up, we got Levi Wallace, who was signed to a 1-year deal this offseason. Kind of got that Alabama cornerback duo. But I think Riley Moss is going to actually start, so I don't really know. But a veteran guy, kind of brought in to fill oh my goodness, Fabian Moreau role. That was what he was brought in for, that veteran presence at corner. I think Riley Moss is going to be the corner too, though. So we'll see. Obviously, it's going to depend on how much playing time Levi Wallace gets. Is he going to be a starter? How dominant is he going to be the potential cornerback too and be re-signed? I don't know, but he is going to be an upcoming unrestricted free agent. And Matt Peart, who we signed this free agency, offensive tackle, he was from the Giants. I believe before that he was I think he was at UConn was his college, and I really liked him coming out. I believe it was in that 2020 draft class. I think it was 2020. It hasn't really panned out. Wasn't really great with New York, and from what I saw in the preseason, he wasn't great. Our whole offensive line depth, I'm a little bit worried about this upcoming season, but I don't know. Matt Peart will be an upcoming unrestricted free agent this season. Of course, this is obviously, and I keep saying it, pending cut. Cut down day. If they're cut, there can be an unrestricted free agent this year. Then we got Philip Dorsett, who was actually waived today. I guess, since it's 1 a.m. yesterday, but on Monday he was waived. So he's already been waived off the roster. Probably could come back on the practice squad. I think there's some rule with veterans. It's typically young guys, but there's some rule with veterans on the practice squad. Baron Browning, big year coming up for Baron Browning. Gets a contract here. We'll see if he gets paid by the Broncos this offseason. We got Lil Jordan Humphrey. He's kind of one of those bubble receivers. Is Lil Jordan Humphrey going to make it, or is Brandon Johnson going to make it this year? Either way, I think Lil Jordan Humphrey might make it onto the practice squad this season, of course, if no one else signs him to their active roster. Then we got Andre Smith, the linebacker, who I believe was also waived on Monday. Then Got Sam Mustipher, who I would say is the backup center slash backup guard. You know, Alex Forsythe hasn't been playing great. Luke Wattenberg, I believe, has already locked up the starting center position, but I do think he is that backup center, backup guard type of role for the Denver Broncos. He will be a free agent this upcoming, or I guess next offseason. I guess this upcoming offseason. David Sills, the wide receiver, really, really cool story. I know I've talked about it before. He's going to be a free agent this upcoming offseason. And same thing with Calvin Throckmorton, someone who can play. Honestly, I think he can play anywhere on the offensive line. He can play tackle. He can play guard. He can even play center. Hasn't really had the greatest preseason. But, yeah, he's going to be an offensive lineman. I remember back when I did one of my first mock drafts on this channel, one of my first videos on this channel, as a matter of fact, I wanted the Broncos to draft Calvin Throckmorton in the 3rd round. Then he went undrafted that draft. I think, what was it? Was he with? I think it was with the Saints first, and then the Panthers. And then obviously he's come here. But Calvin Throckmorton, we'll have to see what happens with him. He's an upcoming unrestricted free agent. Then we got Jonas Griffith, the linebacker, who traded for a 5th-round pick a couple years ago, was mostly a special teamer. Then he had to come in and start, and he looked really solid. Played well. Then last season, he got hurt, missed the entire year. He's come back, and he's kind of a depth linebacker. Maybe he can start our linebacking room. I think Singleton's a starter. We'll see what happens with Cody Barton. I think Griffith could potentially start. I like Jonas Griffith, but we'll have to see as he's an upcoming free agent. Jonathan Cooper as well, a terrific 6th-round pick back in that 2021 class. I would be shocked if Cooper isn't brought back. I think he's a very solid 3rd edge rusher, rotational guy. Really like Jonathan Cooper. Cooper will have to see what the Denver Broncos do. Then, of course, Quinn Bailey, who's on IR. He got hurt. Don't know if the Broncos will bring him back, but he is a free agent. He's an upcoming free agent. Trenton Gill, we cut him, so it doesn't really matter as Riley Dixon won the punting battle. But we'll see. I doubt the Broncos signed him to their practice squad, but he was an upcoming unrestricted free agent. Or I guess, actually, sorry. He was a restricted free agent, which I can't remember how exactly they work in the NFL. But in the NHL, you have the rights to re-sign that free agent. And if someone else offers them a contract, you have the opportunity to match that contract. And so that's what a restricted free agent means. And if you don't, and they sign somewhere else, then you get draft compensation back. At least that's how it works in the NHL. I have a feeling they're probably similar in the NFL, but you don't typically see a lot of RFAs because I think that's if you've only played 3 years in the league. Because most rookies, their rookie deals expire after 4 years. So I think after 3 years, if you're an undrafted free agent and you sign a 3-year or lower contract, you're an RFA. So that is what I believe it means. Then we got Jalen Virgil as well, who was an undrafted free agent out of Appalachian State a couple of years ago. Very speedy guy, could be a potential returner. I just don't know if he makes the roster with the depth, but that's not this video. That's not this video. I really like Jalen Virgil. Of course, went down last season. I'm kind of talking a little bit too much. Jalen Virgil, upcoming restricted free agent. Elijah Garcia, interior defensive lineman, also an upcoming restricted free agent. And Mitchell Fraboni, our long snapper, is also an upcoming restricted free agent, which I don't know if we're going to re-sign because, what was his name before that? Before Mitchell Fraboni, I can't remember who our long snapper was. I think he's with the Raiders now. But typically, I feel like you don't re-sign long snappers. I think, I guess you could, but I think for the Broncos in our history, we just let them move on, leave in free agency, and then we bring in a college guy or someone like that. But we'll see. Maybe Fraboni is re-signed. Then we got Brandon Johnson, who's a restricted free agent. He was an undrafted free agent out of UCF, I believe. Started at Tennessee before transferring to Central Florida. He's an upcoming restricted free agent. We'll have to see. It's going to be an interesting battle between who gets that final receiver position. In my opinion, it's between, and I feel like a lot of Broncos fans, it's between Little Jordan Humphrey and Brandon Johnson. Then we got Tanner McAllister, who is an exclusive rights free agent. You see I have him in the Oklahoma State jersey. I know technically he's from Ohio State because that's where he played his last year of college. He followed, it was Jim Knowles, who was our defensive coordinator, who went from Oklahoma State to Ohio State, but as a Cowboy alum, I gotta throw him up there as an Oklahoma State Cowboy. I can't remember exactly what the exclusive rights free agent means. Yeah, let me see real quick. Exclusive rights free agent. Let's see here. Players with 2 or fewer seasons of service and whose contracts have expired. Yeah, so two or fewer seasons were played in the NFL, and their contract has expired. I don't know if there's any special properties like they're restricted free agents, where if someone else signs them, you get some draft compensation. I don't know, but we're in the exclusive rights free agents now. Michael Bandy is one. He is that kind of speedster, smaller receiver, has been used as a returner. I know he's played with the Chargers previously, but I just don't foresee Michael Bandy making the roster. Maybe a practice squad guy, though. Then we got Lucas Kroll, tight end, who's oh my goodness, I almost said restricted free agent, an exclusive rights free agent. We'll see what happens with him. We'll see how much he's utilized. I expect him to be utilized a decent amount this upcoming season. For me, I don't think he's our tight end of the future. I know a lot of Broncos fans were hyping that up this offseason. I think he's a solid number 2 tight end, but I don't know if he's our tight end of the future. Next up, we got Jaquan McMillan. This is going to be a very important one for the Denver Broncos. Our slot corner, he's been very, very solid. He was very, very solid at the end of the season 2 seasons ago. I think it was like the Cardinals to the end of the season. He came in, was elevated off the practice squad, played solid, and then was really solid last year. Started to struggle towards the end of the season, but he's our slot corner, and he's very, very, very solid. The Broncos do need to extend not only McMillan, but our number 1 corner in Pat Surtain. I'm hoping that gets done soon. I don't know if it's going to happen because of the start of the season, so that might happen this offseason. But yeah, McMillan and Surtain need to be extended, in my opinion. Next up, we got Hunter Kampmoyer, an exclusive rights free agent. He was Bo Nix's tight end at Oregon 2 seasons ago. I don't know. To me, I keep saying this like what I think is going to happen if they're going to make the roster or not. Hunter Kampmoyer, tight end, exclusive rights free agent, is upcoming. Alec Mock, he's been cut, resigned so much this, I guess, not only this offseason, but during training camp and the preseason, he's been cut to make room for a guy and then re-signed. So it's just kind of funny, but I don't know if he's going to make the roster because of that. Then we got Reese Taylor, another guy. I think he was, what was he? I think he was previously with the Chiefs, but I can't remember. Then we got Keidron Smith, who I do think is going to make the Denver Broncos roster with how he's performed in the preseason. Had 2 interceptions, a fumble recovery. Could have potentially had 3 interceptions this preseason, but I do expect Keidron Smith to make the Denver Broncos roster. Next up, Will Sherman, another exclusive rights free agent. I need to stop saying my predictions. He's upcoming. I'm just going to speed through the rest of this and get to the end of the video here. We got Devon Key as an exclusive rights free agent, or Devin Key. Then we got DeMontre Jacobs, Jordan Jackson, who, by the way, balled out in the final preseason game. So it's going to be a tough decision for the Broncos if we want to keep him or not. But look out for Jordan Jackson to make the roster. I didn't think he was going to make it, but after a monster preseason game 3, he could absolutely make the roster. Then Tyler Beatty, who, in my prediction video, if you saw, I didn't have him making the roster. I had Blake Watson over him. As much as I love Blake Watson, I think Beatty will be that running back 4, not including the fullback, for the Broncos this season. And that is it. Let me know what your thoughts are. I guess, let me know who you want to re-sign for the Denver Broncos. There's not really thoughts or opinions on this. These are the facts. These are the players that are going to be free agents this upcoming season. Who do you want to see the Denver Broncos re-sign? To me, I think it's got to be Jaquan McMillan. I'd say Javonte. Those are the 2 major ones. Potentially Garrett Bowles, if he's going to be signed to a shorter-term deal. We'll have to see. We'll have to see. But these are the free agents for the Broncos. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Parker, and I will catch you in the next one. Peace out.